Welcome to another episode of Behind the Scenes. Today's guest has been in the porn industry for over 18 years. He has quite a reputation. He is professional, he's amazing, he's wonderful, and he's fully human, and he will be the first one to admit it. It has been my longest dream to sit down with this man and get to know him so much better, and today was the day I got the opportunity to do so. So I am so excited to share this interview with you. It's going to make you laugh and it may make you cry, but it will definitely warm your heart. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to the show Nick Capra. Thanks for joining me, honey. Oh,
And
hi, sweetheart.
oh yeah,
I'm great. Welcome to the show.
I'm excited to be here.
I
And
am.
finally get to meet you live.
I know this is going to be a new thing for me and your fans because you and I have just recently, probably in the last 6 months, kind of connected. So this is going to be great because the questions I'm asking, I'm going to want to know just as much as everybody else is going to want to know. So this is going to be great. It's going to be awesome. So we'll just jump right into the questions. Again, thank you for sitting down with us. We're going to go all the way back to little Nick. Little Nick. I want to know where Nick grew up and what kind of childhood you had and anything else you want to share about that.
I was born in New York, in White Plains. It's not really upstate. It's getting towards like upstate New York. It was at that time very rural and very family oriented.
Mm-hmm.
And was born in August 1st, 1974, and very Italian family growing up, and not a lot of money. I think at 2 years old, we had to move from White Plains, my mother and father, to Brooklyn. We went from Brooklyn, and they couldn't even afford to live there. And so I think it was like 2.5 years old, we had to move to the Bronx. And that's where I can started to have little early bits and pieces of memory growing up in the Bronx because my mother's parents lived there. And they owned a fourplex. So rent-free, living in a tiny little apartment in the Bronx. And it was just a very Italian Catholic home. My grandmother watched me during the day while my mom worked.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a very religious woman. So I got brought up a lot with a lot of Italian Catholic guilt. I think it was like 5 years old. I remember my grandmother was reading me stuff from the Bible. And she was always telling me that I was going to grow up and I was going to live my life according to the teachings of Christ. And I was going to save my body for a woman that I loved. And yeah, that was the gig. And I already knew at like a very young age that this woman was my enemy because I was going to marry David Bowie.
I love it. I love it. So you knew early. So you absolutely knew early.
Yeah. That was my first crush was David Bowie. And I remember seeing him on MTV and just being so enamored by him because he had the different eyes and he was so flamboyant in that voice. And I told my mom, I don't remember this, but my mom told me this was like the first sign and inclination that I was a little gay boy, that I told her I was going to marry David Bowie. And she said, well, little boys don't marry other little boys. She said, I looked at her and I said, well, I'm going to marry David Bowie. And that was that.
Good for you. You started young. You rebel.
Yeah.
You rebel. That's awesome. So, how was school? I mean, well, let's back up a minute. When you obviously started having inclinations, when did you actually acknowledge that you were gay?
I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what gay meant, really. This was in, the late 70s, and children were not brought up with this kind of advanced knowledge that they have now. It wasn't talked about in sex education.
No.
Or it wasn't talked about in the early. So, we moved to California, I'd say I was around 5 years old when we moved. I was 5 years old, and my dad had this dream of opening a hair salon. And my mother was still being an administrative assistant, a secretary. And I started going to elementary school. And it was right around then that I wanted to start playing doctor, though, with the boys. you know, and trying to like figure out ways to see other boys' penises, you know, and yeah, and I always had an affinity. I always had an affinity for women, like at that time, the Bionic Woman and Wonder Woman. So
Mm-hmm.
gay heroes started then, but what I always wanted to kiss the little boys, you know. So um, yeah, it was around 5.
Okay.
Yeah,
Huh. So how was school with all of that?
it
I
was
mean,
rough. I was not an attractive little boy. I was gangly. I was very tall for my age, and I was very feminine. And I got made fun of a lot. I had ears that stuck out. I had very boxed ears, and they called me Dumbo, and they called me. And you know, by the time you get to around 7 and 8, that's when you start to get a little more formulative in sexuality and who the boys are.
mm-hmm.
Just getting called fag by around time 7 or 8. Yeah, bullied. Just a bullied. I was playing tetherball. I was the only boy that played tetherball. All the boys went and played kickball, and I was playing tetherball with the girls because I could relate better to women.
Tetherball's fun though. I mean, tetherball is wicked. I mean,
Yeah.
anybody can kick a ball, but trying to catch a tetherball going 70 miles an hour's got some skill.
Yeah, yeah. And but it was more about the relationships. I just socially I liked women better, and it was because my father was he just and I never connected, and he never. And this is such I think a very garden variety story for many gay men. Dad issues. So they started very young. So I had no, and my mom was always there for me. I was total mama's boy, and so I related I looked up to women,
Mm-hmm.
and I related to women because I had this amazing mom and no concept of men, of how to associate with them.
Well, you go where you can get the support. You go where you get the love. You
Yeah,
go. We gravitate towards
yeah,
where people accept you. So it's totally understandable that you would gravitate towards your mom and gravitate towards female friends because that was who your tribe was. That was your tribe.
yes. And
That
that kind of power
yeah.
that came from female energy, I related to because that's what I was raised with.
And
Even with my grandmother, and as crazy as she was, that's what I was started with, and then as my mom, and so it was women from the get go were always the driving force of where I drew power from.
so when did you come out officially?
I was 17 when I kissed a boy for the first time, and yeah, and I was ready. Um, he was straight, but it was like now we're in the 90s when being bi was kind of like the in thing at that time, and I was very gothic, and I had long hair and no eyebrows, so I kind of looked like a chick at that time. And he was a competitive surfer,
Hmm.
and he was just fucking gorgeous. This Italian guy named Zach. I won't say his last name. And his name was Zach. And I still have pictures of the two of us. And I remember it was that first kiss though. You never forget it.
No.
And yeah, and then I went running to my mom, and I told her the day after we kissed, I said I think I'm bisexual. So I came out to her, and she's the first person I came out to, and she looked at me and she said, "Well, I guess if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck, it's usually a duck." And that was the most of what she said.
I see. And how did you make the distinction of just being bisexual?
Well, I was gay. I just was afraid to say.
Okay. I was going to ask because I think I didn't hear a whole lot of
No,
dating girls in there. So,
no, there was just like, and still in the early '90s, this was not a accepted thing. So, and also to add, I had to finish my last year of high school in adult school with all the pregnant teenagers because I got the shit beaten out of me. I got jumped by 3 guys because I had just come out, and I kissed a boy, and I came out publicly after that, and I got beaten up very, very badly, violently. So, yeah, I was still a lot of internalized homophobia about who I was at that time. And still, I would try to masturbate and think of women just exclusively, and Dick always just crept into that fucking fantasy.
You know, this whole nature and choice thing is so bunk anyway. We all know this now. I mean, there are still people in denial, but you know, it's you came into being in a very interesting transitional time. You're one of a few I've talked to about it that younger ones can't really comprehend how much harder what is 20 years to come out, you know, versus 10. That 10-year difference makes a hell of a lot of difference. So yeah, the fact that you landed on your feet is huge and managed to make your way through all of this. That's huge. That's huge.
You know, and then from the other side of it, though, I don't know how these kids, even though they've got like gay alliance teams in high school and trans alliance groups, and there's you know, it's become very socially, people are socially aware. I don't know how today's youth gets by with cyberbullying, you know, and there was less suicides in my time that were documented at kids my age than there are now. So to today's youth, big hug, because what they have to go through, I think, is on some levels a little bit scarier.
I think a lot of it is the anonymity of being online and being bullied by different people, even if they don't even know you. You know, it's like they do this mass bullying thing. It's like a campaign of just abuse piled and piled and piled on these people.
Yeah. And
at least in the schoolyard, you had people that were watching, and somebody would always step up and interfere and say, you know, this is just not right, you know.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
But the cyber stuff, people try to step in, but there's such an influx of people who are not even part of the situation that step in and just want to be part of the fray. It's just, I think social media has given us a lot of great things, but it's also taken away a lot of great things. Meaning we're less inclined to check our words before we write them, versus when we used to think about what we're saying before we say them.
Yes.
So I think that's a big thing that's changed and shifted.
I agree. And there's something about a written word than when it's just spoken to you, because it just stays there
forever unless you delete it. But even then, it's still it's encased in your head.
Yeah. And
you know?
and people will argue this, but when I was little, when shit went left and someone said something, you met at the bike racks and you fought. And I grew up, I fought a lot of physical altercations, and I got my ass beat and I kicked a lot of kids' asses. But what would happen with that, at least though, after the fight, it was done.
Exactly.
It's like we respect one another, whoever, it was always squashed. These kids with the cyberbullying, I think there's this emotional thing that happens. And for me personally, I would rather take a hit than take some of the words that people say, because the bruise fades. That emotional, it doesn't leave you.
Well, and there's no consequence to this these days. I mean, yeah, you can get somebody that'll turn around and go, you know, that's just not right. You shouldn't talk to people like that. But that's not a consequence. That's just an opinion.
Your account is suspended.
Exactly. You're not, you know, slap on the wrist and off you go and go find somebody new. But then you got to wonder what is creating this bullying attitude in the first place. Because most people who bully are usually they have their own personal demons going on. So where is that coming from? What is not being addressed behind the bully? I mean, what's going on in the bully's head? You know, because it's not just somebody decides one day to be a bully. They usually come from broken home situations. They have personal problems. They have emotional problems. There's usually a reason for bullies to be a bully. And I think that's part of our problem in our society too, is we don't address mental health enough.
No. And we don't, there's a lack of real discussion.
Exactly. Well, we tell jokes about it. I mean, that's how we get around it, is we tell jokes about it.
Yeah.
instead of actually addressing the elephant in the room.
Yeah, my high school, my graduating class has a website page. Do you know I've had about three different guys that were they were the ones who completely made my life miserable. The worst one. Three of them. In the last 10 years that I've spoken with them online came out to me. So at that time,
They were in denial and hiding.
and a lot of them had sexual abuse.
And you know, it's ironic. A lot of that abuse was caused by others who were struggling with their sexuality and did not want to. They didn't want to be gay because of the stigma.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I'm always cool about it with them. You know, I'm like, yeah, you completely cognitively fucked me up as a kid, but wouldn't it have just been even easier if you just let me suck you off back then? Did I go through all that?
I know, hindsight's 20/20 and a good blow job. I mean, it's all. I get it. You know, there's abuse on both sides. To be honest with you, I mean, I've had two people come back to me who used to pick on me in junior high to be told that the reason why they picked on me was because they thought I was pretty. I'm like, wouldn't it have been easier just to ask me out on a date?
Yeah.
I mean, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
You know, but then you got to figure out what was going on at home, that they felt that was the appropriate way to deal with their feelings.
Yeah, it really
and
is.
I think a lot of our problem with kids today is they don't know how to deal with their feelings. They don't know who to go to express their fears, their anxieties, their anger. And so it's just easier to find somebody at your school who you can see or assume from an outside perspective is the weak link and just go after them. And it gives you this momentary high, but then it's gone. It doesn't last. It doesn't last.
No. No, it doesn't. It's a real powerful drug, though, rage.
It is. It is. It's almost is right up there with euphoria, to be honest with you.
Yes, and you come down off of it and you ride high off of it, and it's such a brilliant way to mask the pain that someone's feeling. I'm guilty of it. I know when I'm in pain over something, the easiest way is to go take it out on take all that pain and project it onto somebody that has nothing to do with it. Some poor, unaware soul who just blinked at me wrong. And I think but also, as we've talked about already, is social media kids don't even know how to socialize because their faces are buried in their phones all day. Mm-hmm. So there's a lack of ability to even have a conversation like we are right now.
And I hope we get back there, and I think it's potentially possible to get there again. A lot of it is just deciding to put the phone down and take a look at who you're out with and deciding, okay, I could text you, or I can sit there and actually have an eye-to-eye conversation with you. And I think part of it too is people are afraid to be vulnerable. And that's something that, again, I know some kids were raised on having a TV as a babysitter. Parents would put you down in front of Barney or whatever was on to keep you busy while they were doing whatever, because, I mean, God bless them, they were doing the best that they could as a parent, and they had things they needed to get done. But when you're spending a lot of time in front of an inanimate object, you don't have that interconnection.
Yeah.
So I get that. So post high school, 17, you kissed a boy, everything's all hunky dory. Where did you go to next? What was next?
Well, in my case, there was a lot of, at that point, just to backtrack a little bit, I grew up in a very abusive home. My father was a very physically abusive man. He was a drug addict, but unbeknownst to me, this was a time in the early 80s when cocaine was a very big part of just social circles. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have Just Say No or any information on it. And so my mom never sat me down and said, hey, your dad's popping off and is kind of become a monster because he's doing coke. That conversation was never had. She was always just trying to protect me from him and protect me from the truth. So I grew up very, very battered emotionally and physically. So by 17, I graduated in adult school, and I got my diploma from high school, and I was off and running. And by then, I had already tried my first narcotic, and drugs are a huge part of my history. And what I've learned for myself, and this is just my story, is unresolved pain that I had with my father. You don't realize it at the time, but then you become you become that pain. So my abuser was a drug addict, and even though I didn't even know yet that he was, I found drugs to get away from all the pain I was in.
Ouch.
Yeah, so it started with crystal meth. 17 is when I tried crystal meth for the first time, and my life completely just it started going left. That's a very powerful experience when you're a drug like that, and I remember it made me feel whole. I felt pretty. I felt attractive, and those are things. And I felt connected to people because you would have these crazy conversations. And I was a very shy kid, and it made me less shy. And I didn't want to ever let go of it from the moment I tried it. So people argue about how you become an addict. I think that it's something that you're born with, and at some point it's just set off. And for me, it was set off the moment I tried it.
Everybody has a launch pad for that.
Yeah.
And I do agree with you. My father was an alcoholic, and they actually say 1 in 4 child has a potential to have the addiction of a parent. You didn't even have the other 3 to contend with. You just had you. So I totally understand how you were predisposed for it without even realizing that it was already set off hereditarily from you. But I can understand why you would fall into that trap of how it made you feel, how it filled in those spots that you thought were lacking. Especially on the whole, even though there's not a shy bone in my body, there were situations that alcohol, in my case, or in drugs in your case, made it easier for you to connect to people.
Yeah.
Because you always wanted to. There's always that desire to be accepted.
Yes, very much so.
So I can see that. I can see that falling in that rabbit hole would not be that hard to do.
Yeah.
Especially if you are, even though God bless your mom, she tried to fill that position and that role with you 100%. They don't always manage to do that. So you fall into this category of wanting to find acceptance and love and all of the things that go along with it from the outside instead of in here.
Yeah.
So I get that.
Yeah. Everything that I was looking for was on the outside because I was just so broken on the inside.
So I know you've been struggling with this monkey on your back for quite a few years. And I know that you are in detox right now and that you are back on your feet again, and that you've had another bout with going into drug therapy, which I'm very proud of the fact that you are counting your days and the numbers are higher than the numbers that weren't.
Yes.
And I'm cheering you on every day and all day and always. So, and it's not an easy battle. So, tell me, how are you doing? How are you doing with that?
Right now, things are good. They're actually really good. Today is day 64, sober, and I was in the actual medical detox for the first 12 days of my sobriety, from day 0 to day 12. And then I went into outpatient treatment. So I'm there 4 days a week now for 3 hours a day. And outside of that, like after I leave you later tonight, I'll go to going to an AA meeting for the bear community. I find these great, but it was a struggle, and each time coming back, it gets harder, you know. But I also learned things that were missing in my sobriety and previous ones that need to be attended to. So hopefully this will be the last day 64 I ever have.
I'm in 100% agreement, and you know, for whatever reason, if you just need to call me on the phone, you know this, to
That
keep you whatever. Don't even care what time of the day, night, whatever. Call me. You have my number. So I want you to know that I'm an emergency contact if you need it, no matter what.
It's a lot to hear you say that.
Okay.
That really is, and I really do believe it's coming from a genuine place. So thank you.
I am all over wanting people to be successful in becoming their true authentic self, and we all stumble, we all fall, and we all get up again.
Absolutely.
And they're browbeating somebody over what they did wrong does no good whatsoever. And it's not even worth having a conversation over, because it's not benefiting anybody. We all learn from our mistakes. Sometimes I think we learn better than if we get with the victories.
Yeah. Oh God. The greatest lessons I've learned have been from the greatest tragedies inflicted by myself, and from situational that I had no control over. I think that's just a natural part of the growing process. Unfortunately, pain is a great teacher.
Well, we were given opposites for a reason in our life. We can't understand and accept joy if we don't understand and accept sorrow.
Absolutely.
And it's unfortunately, it's a flipped coin. We have one on each side. We have to accept that both of them are going to be a part of our lives.
Yeah. And I could have tried to, I believe everything that we keep secret and things that kept in the dark all come to light. But for me personally, making every piece of my life, like we're having this discussion now, but outside of this, every day people are finding out something personal about me because I write about it all. It's like everything goes journal format onto my social media pages, and I do that because it's humbling. I've fallen down publicly, probably more, just as like up there with the most that anyone could possibly fall down on their faces with the relapses and different things. But I think that talking about them takes the power out of the guilt and the shame that comes with those things. So it was important for me to say I relapsed again. And there was a lot of people. Someone said to me, "I don't believe that you're serious about your sobriety." And I came back and I was just like, okay, block, move on.
They don't have to. It's not about them. No. The ironic part of it is you are willing to share your journey, your sobriety. You're willing to expose yourself to both acceptance and ridicule, and that they go hand in hand.
Yes.
But you're also being authentic, and you're being yourself. Yeah. And the ironic part of it is that not only are you helping yourself, but there are probably quite a few out there that are participating in your journey who see that it's okay to make that step towards fixing whatever monkey is on their back. But they're not the only ones out there, and that they're not alone. They may not publicly share with you their own, situation, but they see you. They can resonate with your story. Yeah. And even though you're doing this for you, I think in a weird, strange way, you're probably helping more people than you realize.
My primary place is to do it for myself.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yes.
I have sufficient evidence in the messages, in the private messages from people who are still in their addiction, men and women, who have suffered from abuse from childhood, all the things that I've discussed publicly. There's been this chain that's been created that goes way beyond my work in the industry with my following, that has made us so close. I always realized that as a performer, if I wanted to have a lasting career, and I tell this to the boys, but they all think they know it all. But next February will be 18 years since I shot my first video for Shishi. So it'll be 18 years since I shot Finish Me Off in 2002. And the reason, and people say, well, what's your secret? And why have you lasted? Because I have exposed my humanity. And once you have, because who can really relate to a porn star's life exclusively in porn, right? Have you shot, right? You haven't worked in porn.
Nope.
So you can walk and you can, but I bet if we had a conversation, you being a child of an alcoholic, me being a child of a drug addict, we have a very relatable. And I think that bond brings us. So once you start sharing that, fantasies come and go. The average lifespan of a porn star, if you're really 10 years at tops, if you're at the top of your game, I think my secret and why we're moving into 18 years now is because of this, and being able to share the pain as well as the sex. They came for the sex and they stayed for the story. Mm-hmm. So it's been a real give and take relationship with the fans.
This is why I'm doing the show. I want everybody's fans to be able to relate to their favorite porn star.
I believe that we're having the conversation we're having now because I've done so many interviews and none of them are like, they don't do this. So I'm really grateful that you're doing this.
It's important. It's important. You guys have a story to tell, and it isn't just about what your favorites. We can talk about all that, and I wouldn't mind hearing it, but it's not all that you are. You aren't just that enigma on the camera. Although you're gorgeous on camera, no excuse there. I love it. It helped you create a platform that you are now able to work from, and that's an important part of your career, and it should not go unnoticed. But it isn't all that you are. So I have to ask though, 18 years, what made you decide to get into porn? I mean, what was the click?
I did not decide to get into porn. I am the accidental porn star. I had a boyfriend. His stage name was Troy Michaels. Mm-hmm. And I was going to massage school when I was 27 years old. This was 2001. And I met him, and I just fell topsy-turvy for him. Little twink. I was 27, he was 21.
I just can't imagine you as a twink. But it's okay. You'll have to share a photo with me, because I want to see one.
I will send you pictures from 2002. You will be, I was a little but he was, I always liked the younger boys, even at 27. He was 21, and this little twink, and we moved to West Hollywood together from San Diego, because he wanted to really get in, immerse himself in the porn, and that's where it all was happening back then, in 2002. And one day he was doing an internet show for this. I didn't know who anyone was. I didn't pay attention, for some person named Shishi LaRue, and it was called Live and Raw, not Raw being bareback. It was just because live internet shows were a brand new concept in 2002. So Raw meant unedited.
I see. Okay.
Live condom show. So it was Shishi LaRue's liveandraw.com. And it was, and the person he was supposed to do it for canceled. So, and he was like, I have to do this internet show, babe, because it's this director named Shishi LaRue, and she's like the Steven Spielberg of gay porn. Mm-hmm. If she likes the internet show, maybe she'll put me in a movie. And I'm like, so what are you saying? And he's like, well, will you do it with me? And I was working for a catering company, making a minimum wage and tips, and they were paying $300 for a 3-hour show. To me, that was like hitting the jackpot. And I said, well, do they record the shows? And he said, no, it's just streamed. Okay, so we went in and did the internet show. It was Troy Michaels and Model. They asked me to give them a name. I wouldn't even give them a name because it was going to be for one time. So I didn't even choose a name, because it was going to be it was my swan. It was going to be my little one hit doing this internet show with my boyfriend. And I walked in to Channel 1 Releasing, the offices, and the owner, Steven, saw me, and he's like, he immediately got on the phone, and he's talking, and he's like, there's this guy here with Troy Michaels. They knew who my boyfriend was. and he looks like an Italian model, and you have to get in here now. And 15 minutes later, this crazy man with no eyebrows and a goatee comes walking in. He comes walking right up to me, and he's like, "Hi, I'm Shishi." Is just like that. And she watched about 20 minutes of our internet show, and she saw that I could get an erection. She saw what I looked like naked, and she walked into the internet show, and she said, "We've already cast a 4-scene movie, and we want to add a 5th scene because I want you in my movie." And my boyfriend, the porn star, is like, "Well, who's he going to do it with?" And she's like, "He's going to do it with you. You brought him to us." So I got to shoot that first video. It was signed, sealed, and delivered that day. I got my first movie. It was with my boyfriend. It's for Shishi, called Finish Me Off. And that day, Shishi gave me my name.
Shishi gave you your name, huh?
She gave me my name.
Oh.
And she said to me, "When you were young, what was the guy's name in high school that you wanted to fuck the most?" And his name was Nick Carbone. This Italian guy, of course. And I said, "His name is Nick." She's like, "Okay, well, then your name's going to be Nick." And we went over last names, and she's like, "What about like Capra, like Frank Capra, the director from It's a Wonderful Life?" And I was like, "Okay."
There you go.
And the rest is history. And
I think that's awesome, because that was one of my questions, was how did you come up with your name? Now we're going to just give total credit to Shishi.
She gave birth to me. She is my birth mother.
That's
if
awesome.
it weren't for her, and if it weren't for that little random internet show, and that guy canceling, none of this would have happened.
So, what is your favorite part of being in the industry? What is the thing that always just keeps you coming back? I mean,
it's changed over the years. In the beginning, it was just, this was before social media, so it was seeing myself in magazines. That's when print magazines, all of them, and there was like 30 of them, huge, that you would go to the dirty bookstores, and they were all like Honcho, Men, Inches, and seeing myself in these magazines. And that's when, of course, I still have my stuff on VHS. That makes me old. But seeing yourself on the cover of a video cassette or a DVD, it was like that kind of like, oh my gosh, like that skinny little, unattractive, awkward, made fun of boy is finally getting attention. And I felt so validated, and I felt pretty. And, I always knew I was a good person on the inside, but I never felt pretty on the outside. And I finally felt like the ugly duckling was becoming a little swan. And it was a real empowering feeling. That's how it started, and that gets old after a while. Then you're like, okay, I'm pretty, so now what? So what it's evolved to now is this platform it's given me, to reclaim my sobriety and become pretty on the inside again, because I got very fragmented with drugs and trauma and things that have happened along the way. And now I already know I am assured in my looks. I'm not the best looking. I'm definitely not the worst looking. I'm an attractive man in his mid-40s. But now I'm looking to find the pretty on the inside again and share that, and hopefully make some other kid that felt as abused and fucked up as me at that age when I first got out of high school, maybe, and make them understand that they're not alone, because I didn't have someone to tell me their story.
Yes. So there are those who would say that the business would have been the biggest reason why you had this problem. I don't think you agree with that, though.
Well, and as we've already talked about, I was a drug addict at 17 years old. The industry is actually very sober positive. I have been fired by Shishi. I have been fired by Steven Scarborough, who at the time was the owner of Hot House, for showing up on sets fucked up. And when you're a product for that studio, you show up sweaty, can't get hard, all sketchy looking, they're going to tell you to go home because you're a defective product. I think that Boogie Nights and movies like that kind of created the stigma of people are doing coke off each other's dicks on the sets. It's nothing like that. And I would like to add this last time getting sober, the out of every friend in people that are not in the industry and in the industry, I had one friend give me a real tough love talk. And his name is Michael Lucas. And he said to me, I love you. If you relapse again, though, not just on a professional level, on a personal level, I can't speak to you anymore because you don't seem to realize that you're not hurting just you. You've broken my heart because I ghost when I'm high. And Michael is one of my best friends. And he's like, what you've done to me in your addiction has hurt me. And it's not that I'm angry with you. I can't handle that pain anymore. One of the best conversations anyone's ever had with me.
Your presence this last time was truly felt. I mean, I had people who I saw making Twitter comments, where's Nick? Nick's disappeared. Yeah. So I totally saw that coming about because it was between your last time and this time. That you were right. You completely ghosted. You were gone. And someone actually made the comment, he must have fallen off again.
Yeah.
But at the same time, where this is not a product of what you do for a living. You do have the support in the industry. It's a tough love support.
Yes.
And I don't know that fans know this, that it's not accepted by others in the industry, although there is drugs in the industry.
Yes.
But it's not accepted, and there are people that still say, hey, dude, I love you, you need to stop. It's not like people just completely walk away from you. So I can understand where people might think that, given, as you said, those earlier movies that were kind of a glorification of something that really is not something that should be glorified.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't even had this discussion with him. I'm going to wait till I see him in person. But Michael Lucas very well had a big part in saving my life. And he would not like me to say this publicly because he likes to keep his polarizing bad boy, says obnoxious things, and
he is rather good at it.
But he's very clever that way. He likes being, but Michael is, God, he's going to be so mad at me for saying this, one of the most caring, nurturing men I have ever had in my life. I'll show you something.
He's going to shoot you.
Yeah. I'll show you something. Those two pictures right above?
Uh-huh.
Those are prints. They're originals from Greece. I had a cancer diagnosis. Actually, 2 years ago this month, in November 11th, I had diagnosed with testicular cancer. And Michael's whole house is in Chelsea. His condo in Chelsea is like a museum. He doesn't have a single print that he bought in New York where he lives. They're all from other countries that he's traveled to. And I don't know how he remembered me looking at that of a prince and a king, those two prints. And I remember asking him where he got them. He said they were in Greece. And after I had my cancer surgery, I got a big package. And it was from him. And he said, I hope that these make you feel better because I remember that you were looking at them on my wall. So they hang here in my little...
I have to say it. That is so sweet. He's going to kill it, but I don't care. I don't care. Yeah. He can come find me. How's that?
Yeah, so, there is, and no one wants to believe I could say it, but there it is. Those are, I don't even know what he paid for them, but I know they weren't cheap. And it's not about the money. It was just the thought and, his concern for me. And it's, it's never stopped. Michael's he's one of my inspirations. He's my goals because of what he's done with his empire. He doesn't take shit from anybody, and he's kind of like the older brother that I never had.
That's good.
Yeah.
So tell me, what do you think one of the biggest misconceptions people have about the industry? You've been around long enough to be able to answer this like nobody's business because you've got the history.
Well, about the industry and how it works, or about performers?
All of it. People have these certain perceived, view of the industry and porn stars in general.
Yes. I think that, well, we've done this to ourselves as performers. So if you are, if you, and because I did this for my first five, maybe even more years, if you're constantly taking pictures of yourself, and that's just the only form of marketing, because you're trying to make it in the industry, these new boys, then if all they are pictures of your hole and your cock and your beautiful, gorgeous, sculpted body, you will not be seen as anything more than a vapid entity. So there is this misconception, and these guys all have very great personal stories, much like mine, but they just haven't thought to tell them because they don't think anyone wants to hear them. They think that all the fans want.
I do.
And there are many like you out there because you know this because you get such a great response from what you do. However, these boys don't know it yet, so they do themselves a disservice by not taking, but they don't realize it yet. And so I think that the misconception about performers is that that's all we are, is that we're just these lascivious sexual creatures that spend our days in bathhouses and don't have any soul. And I think that the conception about the industry is that it's just a bunch of dirty old men exploiting unassuming, stupid performers. So I think that they don't realize that there's people like Michael, who were Russian immigrants who struggled and built. He started his studio out of a studio apartment, and look at him now. And Shishi, who started from very humble beginnings, and as a customer service representative, taking calls at Catalina, who was an old studio. What order can I get for you? Mm-hmm. And she is, quite arguably the Anna Wintour of gay porn, So, these are people that came from nothing, who worked their asses off to contribute to this billion-dollar industry. And every model has a story. I'm looking forward, hopefully, that some of them seeing what I'm doing will start doing that, seeing what you're doing.
I hope so. We're going to find out. I keep putting myself in front of their face saying, talk to me, come talk to me, come talk to me. So I'm a nice persistence.
I hope that you stay persistent.
I plan to. I don't go away that easy. I don't really I don't.
And this will be why you stay.
Well, I'm going nowhere. I actually had a fan, one of the guys asked me, they're like, do you have a problem with your face being associated with porn? And I'm like, do you? I'm like, and I love him to death. And he's like, you realize you are going to have, you will be, stigmatized as being part of the porn industry. I said, I'd rather that than be in the religious community because they're less accepting.
I can tell you a lot about the religion.
Honey, I was baptized Catholic. I know all about the guilt. I know all about the guilt. Hail Mary and sit on your knees.
Got some connections at the Vatican.
That's okay. I dial direct now. I don't have to go through an operator. I don't need any assistance to get to God. I have direct dial. I'm totally cool. I'm totally cool. So I know we tip-tapped around you and being sober, and how's that working now in the industry? I mean, you're 64 days in. I know you're back to work because I've seen your posts coming up, and you've got scenes coming soon. I'm sure that people have already started tapping on your door, come do a scene.
I'm not, the scenes for the studios, I shot for Shishi. Mm-hmm. We did Icon Mail earlier this year.
Yes.
A movie called Don't Tell My Wife with the beautiful Wesley Woods. Oh. That man. But that's another story. So did that, and I directed my first movie for Lucas Entertainment, which I starred in as well, Secrets My Daddy Never Told Me. I'm a little bit of a diva when it comes to doing movies. If I don't get the box cover, I'm not doing it. If I don't get to be one of the leads in the movie, but I think that I've earned that. So, but also, This is also about running a marathon and not a 100-yard dash. If you want to stay and not saturate, you pace those movies. So, two huge movies, The Icon and The Lucas, which got incredible publicity because I directed it.
Mm-hmm.
And the next one, because it did so well, thank you to the porn gods. Michael has just contracted me to direct the next and star in the next one in Puerto Vallarta.
Oh, yay!
February 15th, we go into production. Wait till you see I'm casting right now.
Okay.
So, so Dirk Caber, Adam Killian. We're talking about, we got these porn legends. New one, Arag Winwin.
Uh-huh.
Were my stars for the last one.
Mm-hmm.
And we're at that same caliber for this next one.
So how does it feel to be on the other side of the camera?
So good. Intense stress because I didn't know what to expect, and I was a nervous wreck because I was side note, and not to butter my own bread, but it was an overwhelming responsibility because Michael Lucas, in 20 years of over 20 years of having Lucas Entertainment, has never made a model, a director. So, no stress here.
No, not at all.
But and also Lucas Entertainment has not done story-based movies in over 7 years. So this was the first. If I can't tell the story, I'm not doing it. So it was a big risk for Lucas Entertainment on their end, and we told a story, and it was it did really well. But for me, I got to play the father I never had.
Okay.
And it was a great experience. I see where I could have done better after the finished product, and we're going to improve on that for the next one.
We talked about this before we went on the show, that, bloopers happen, and that's part of the learning process, and that's totally okay. It has to be. Again, you have to learn and develop and figure out what your style is based on, what you did right and what you did wrong. It's all learning.
Real tremendous respect for the technicalities that go behind production. That because we just show up on the set when they need us for our performance, and we don't generally stay to see what this crew goes through to get those shots. You're racing the sun, you're racing light. We had probably, I think in the movie, it's about a 60-second sequence to establish the relationship between me and my son. Non-sexual, obviously. There's
obviously.
Yes, but with Dakota Payne, who played my son, and, it was filmed in New York on location, and we wanted to do us playing soccer together, just a father-son bonding. That took 4 hours to shoot that 1 minute scene, and
I'm not surprised. I think people are very.
Yeah.
I don't think they understand the length of time that it goes to. Even a short, just strictly sex scene takes hours. Throw in an actual scene that has a storyline and multiple characters and character development. You're talking sometimes a full day, sometimes 2 to 3, depending on the length of the feature. So there's a lot more involved in it than just aim and shoot.
Oh gosh, I love that. Oh, it's just porn. All you do is point at some people out.
Now that's just for fans, or those are the
maybe that's all I do. You're right.
Yeah, that's all you do.
It was great, and you should, when you see the location that Michael secured for this place, it's like nobody should be in this place. It's this 12,000 square foot villa, and it's February in Puerto Vallarta, which is like their spring going into summer, and we're oceanfront property. And when you see my stars, I have my nipples get hard just talking to you about.
Say, mine are too.
So I've already picked out my 2 dads.
Yay!
2 dad-son movies because I've got daddy issues, and playing a dad always fulfills that need to be fathered. I think I found the main son. I think I found my 2 other daddies, and one more peripheral. There'll be 5 characters for a 4 sex scene movie in this next one.
Well, I can't wait to hear more about it as it gets to the point where you're ready to talk about who, what, and where. So I'm super excited for that. And I am so glad that you are enjoying this new phase
Yes.
in your career, and I think it is much deserved.
So much.
You have served your time, so to speak, and it's
was
time for the accolades part of it. Wouldn't it be nice to add Director of the Year to your trophy awards?
I would very much like at some point, of course. This first one I don't expect that because there were some glitches, but the second one, absolutely, yes,
Okay,
we're gonna
nice.
get this.
At
Yes.
least, if nothing else, the acknowledgement. That's huge.
I
That's
don't need
huge.
any more porn awards. I was inducted to the Wall of Fame, won the Living Legend Award with Raven. We're good with all those, and so many awards in between. So as far as a performer, I'm satiated and fulfilled. As a director, yes.
Okay.
From your lips to the God's ears.
Oh yeah, and I want to be there cheering in the audience when it happens. So
Yeah.
super excited, super excited. So tell me, what do you do to relax when you're not on stage or on camera or on media, or what do you do that fills your soul?
The writing is what fills my soul. To relax, I write every day. You got to even if it's my Instagram has a longer than the Twitter posts because you're limited with characters.
Mhm.
So I do write a sober post every day, and that's what really fills my soul. Writing is something I have journals from the time I was 8 years old, so I've always written, and that's what fills my soul. Self-care is taking on something new for me because I've never really practiced it, and I think that was a flaw in my last sobrieties. So I train very hard. I'm in my 40s, and that breaks down the body. I do massage once a week. That is so wonderful, and it just feels good. And I've never even I don't know what I was thinking before, but that was a really great form of self-care. Getting the massage once a week. I go to a movie once a week. I take Motto a movie, whatever she wants to see. I got her the AMC Movie Pass.
Yay!
And we go to a movie once a week. Movies are a wonderful form. I just get to sit there and not be in my own head. And then I'll go to a movie that I actually want to see because Ma gets to choose those movies. Then I go to the movie I want to see because you can do 3 a week on the AMC Movie Pass. To completely get out of my head, my sponsor gave me this assignment. My sponsor in AA is on Wednesdays. I go to a church in Pacific Beach, which is a district of San Diego, right on the beach.
Okay.
Here, and there's a big homeless community there. You show up at 5 o'clock every Wednesday, and I feed the homeless. And in that hour and a half, I ain't thinking about Nick. I ain't thinking about my personal problems, my bills. I'm thinking, do you want green beans or do you not? And when you see these people coming in there was a father and son last week. Little boy, probably my age, when I was going through it, and he was so grateful, and he was so excited that there was mashed potatoes, and he got green beans, and he asked if I could put the extra tomatoes. And these guys are, and you know what, these are people that don't know whether they're going to have a roof over their head that night. So whatever's going on in my head when I walk in there, my problems diminish because these are people that don't even know where they're going to sleep that night. So a great form of self-care for me has been helping other people with no profit and completely anonymously. That was never implemented into my sobriety before.
You're awesome.
Well, I was supposed to do
You are
it.
awesome.
So
You're just going to have to take this, but you are awesome.
Thank you.
You really are.
I will admit, I was like, but why do I have to do this? And he's my sponsor because it's going to keep you sober, and I'm not going to be your sponsor anymore unless you do it. So I was forced.
Okay, but you know.
But I love it.
I know. You're still awesome. Even though, you're trying to play badass, you want to do it. Yeah, whatever. I'm buying it.
For me, I really did want to do it.
Well, you may not have, but I think that you knew very well that it would be good for you. And we all like to whine every now and then just because.
They do more for me, though, than they do as much for me as I do for them by serving them food, though. They really get me out of my fucking... My mind can be like the ghetto, a dangerous place. They get me out of my head.
Oh, my God. You crack me up. Okay, so let's do some lighter questions.
Yes, let's.
Favorite restaurant, favorite foods.
Italian.
Okay. Well, for all I know, you like Chinese.
No. Here's the deal.
Okay.
So I do a cheat day every 2 weeks. I do a light cheat day by having pasta. But my real cheat day is the all-you-can-eat Chinese super buffet. It's this place. It looks like Panda Express on steroids. They have a chocolate fountain. They've got a dessert station. I eat every fucking thing I can fit into my stomach, and I go twice a week, or once every 2 weeks. Sorry, to the Chinese super buffet. Let me turn this off.
Okay. That's so funny. That is so funny.
Yeah.
Well, it's not like Chinese food sticks with you anyway. It's usually you're hungry, what 2 hours afterwards?
Not after the buffet.
Oh, that's stuffed. I see.
Going.
Okay, so I've been asking all the guys this question, so you get to get this question too, and it's actually several of them. Superman or Thor?
Who would I fuck or who would I want to be?
Just which one do you like best?
Superman.
Okay. Spider-Man or Batman?
Batman.
Green Hornet or Captain America?
Captain America.
Okay. See? You answered them all right. I know, it's kind of a stupid question, but I like asking because it's, they're hot men. So, So, what would you love to have as your superpower?
I would like to be able to teleport through time.
That's a good one. It's a good one. Anywhere in the world or just all over the planets, everywhere?
Into the future and back into the past.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to time travel.
So time travel, teleport? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If you could spend the day with anybody, past or present, who would that be?
Just one.
Just one person.
Tori Amos.
Okay. I have to ask why.
She saved my soul.
She did, huh?
Her music saved my soul.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. What trait do you most like about yourself?
Intuition. I have an innate ability to know what's going to work and what's not, and what's right and what's wrong.
Okay.
With myself and others. Generally.
Well, that's helpful, honestly. It's very helpful.
Sober.
Yeah, well, it gets a little muddled when you're not, but it's I think it's still there. It's just muddled.
Frequency's a little crossed.
This is true. Sometimes your wires are like on Moscow time, who knows? So is the glass half full or half empty?
Oh, it's half full.
Not looking for a refill, is it?
Well, I'm an addict. Of course I'm looking for a refill.
But if you had to refill it, it would be with things that are good.
Espresso. With a
Espresso.
little vanilla syrup.
Okay. Just don't start. We have enough Starbucks addicts in this industry. I'm telling you, they're all over the place.
Well, I'm very cost effective. I have my own Keurig, so I save money. I'm not spending $5 on the Starbucks.
I see. Okay. I work. I'll accept that. I'll accept that. So, talk to me a little bit about your personal page for your social media that you're writing your journals.
Mm-hmm. Well, it starts on my page. My real name is Doug, and I'm not afraid to say that to people. People don't like people to know their real names, and it's on my Doug page on Facebook. But it also gets there's a Nick Capra Facebook. It gets tagged there, and gets transferred to Instagram. It's just whatever I'm feeling. I do it in the morning when I first wake up. I wake up extremely early, usually at around 5, and I start writing. For some reason, the muses channel through me at that time. I've tried doing it different times. But yeah, it's whatever my intention is for the day, of that day of sobriety, or whatever I've learned from previous day, or whatever bullshit I'm going through, and I'm looking for a solution. Because, as I said, I get a lot of solutions from the comments from people who relate.
I bet.
Yeah.
So what makes you smile?
Outrageous behavior always gives me a good smile. Drag shows make me smile. Seeing my moss smiles makes me smile. Dogs make me smile.
What makes you sad?
Seeing people that are in the same place that I was, that I've been in my addiction, and that don't want help. It makes me the saddest. Yeah.
It's hard.
My powerlessness and not being able to help. Because you couldn't help me either. Couldn't even find my ass.
I think that's the hardest thing to ever accept, is knowing that everybody has their own life path and that they have to live it, and that you can offer assistance, but if they're unwilling to take it, you have to accept that. You have to.
We're really good understanding of that. You're an old soul, because not many people understand that.
Oh, I struggle with it all the time still. I mean, I see, if I could take in every homeless kid, and gay or straight, truly, but mostly the gay ones, because they're kicked out at such an incredibly young age for something that is beyond their control. I would, but I can't. And every time I see a statistic, or I see a situation where I wish there was more I could do, I do cry about it, you know. So I do what I can, you know. I speak when I can. I step in when I can.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
What would you like to remember it for?
The stories.
Stories.
The stories.
Okay.
Someone that helped other people.
That's awesome. So if you were to write an autobiography about your life, what would you call it?
It's going to be called, well, I can't tell you that because I'm afraid someone else is going to steal it, but it will be published within the next 18 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes.
So you're already at that point. All right.
22 chapters have been written.
Nice. I look forward to reading it.
I hope that you do.
And I want a signed copy, too.
Of course you will get one.
Good. So what message would you love to share with your fans?
It's not even it's a no-brainer. Thank you. You know who you are, every single one of you. You've been here for me when I was dying and killing myself. You still loved me, and you brought me back, you know, from a really dark place. And I read every single one of your messages, and I continue to. And I just want to thank you guys for keeping me around all these years.
That's awesome. Any advice would you give to someone who's interested in getting into the business?
Run.
Okay, well, that wasn't quite exactly what I had in mind, but...
All right, so show up on time.
Okay.
Don't do drugs. And find a way to separate yourself from the herd and connect with your audience that goes beyond the sex. Use your platform.
Okay. So where would new fans find you on social media if they were looking?
Me on Twitter at Nick Capra, and they can find me on IG. It's a long one. It's ICONICK Icon Nick Official at Instagram. And that's Sober Story. They get the long Sober Story in my daily sober posts, the condensed ones on Twitter. Of course, there's my OnlyFans and Just for Fans, Nick Capra on both, and at Lucas Entertainment, my very favorite studio.
So then they'd be able to find any of your films on Lucas as well.
Absolutely, over 12 years worth.
Wow, that's a great history.
Yeah, I think the first one for Lucas was 2008.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. That's dedication too. That's dedication.
And thank God for Michael Lucas. For supporting me creatively all these years. So I'm going to keep plugging him.
That's all right. I'm going to tag him in this, and then he can chase after you for the next 6 months.
Oh my God! I will never hear the end of it, darling. You such things about me. What is this you say, emotion? I don't know this word.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know.
That was the best part.
You can tell him, and I'll leave this in there, that I made you do it. You can
Well,
tell
you can
him.
put this in here. I'll tell you something very quickly and funny about him, because when I told him, because the sex with Lucas Entertainment, beautiful men in these windswept locations, but he's pissing, and it's very, primal.
Yes.
And I told Michael when we were discussing directing the first movie, I said, we're going to translate the emotion and the sex. His words to me, darling, I must Google this word emotion. I do not know. He was joking, but he likes to be a hard ass.
I know. He has quite a reputation with that, so he's doing well. He's doing well. I think, though, that you've managed in less than an hour and 10 minutes to blow that completely out of the world.
I completely blew his 20
I know. His entire career was setting up being an asshole, and you blew it in one entire hour.
Dead.
I know. He is after you. He is going to come after you. So when I see you and you're limping, I'll know why.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Cut me off the knees.
Exactly. Nick, thank you very much for sitting down with me and sharing your story with me and your fans.
This has been one of my favorite interviews that I've had in 18 years.
I can't tell you how excited I was that you agreed to do this, and how excited I am going to be in sharing your story with your fans.
Yeah.
You are an amazing man.
Thank you so much.
And I'm very proud of you. I know that, it's my pride for you is what it is, but I really truly am proud of what you're doing and taking care of yourself, and that you're keeping up the battle. And I know it's not easy.
No.
I've been on the other side of it with my dad too, so I know that the struggle is real. And it's every day. It doesn't ever go away. So know that you are loved, you are supported, and that no matter what, we will always love you. So there you are. But thank you very much for sitting down and doing this with me. This was truly, honestly, one of my best interviews, and I really want to thank you for making it such.
Thank you, Ange.
You're welcome, honey.
Me.
You're very welcome. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Behind the Scenes. Remember, smile and laugh every day. Hug somebody that you love, be it two-legged or four. And remember, you are so very special. Thanks again for joining the show. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.